Welcome to 20 Feet Closer podcast presented by Bible Belt Outdoors. I'm here with co-host Jansen McCloy. Jansen, how are you this evening?
I'm pretty good, bud.
We have a very special guest with us today, coming from the great state of Ohio. We've got Ethan Featheroff. Ethan, you doing okay this evening?
Yes, sir.
We've brought Ethan on the podcast for tonight, and again, you're listening to episode 2. Ethan killed an absolute giant deer. Was it this year or last year, Ethan?
It was this year, opening day of the season.
Not going to spoil it too much because that's what majority of the podcast is going to be about today. He killed an absolute Ohio giant earlier this year, and we've brought him on to tell a little bit about it and get to know him a little better. Ethan and I have been talking via Facebook for the last couple weeks, and I'd just like to get him to know him better, and Jansen get to know him better. And I know, good Lord willing, we're in talks about bringing him on board with us at Bible Belt Outdoors, and just excited about, for one, just the deer he killed. A phenomenal animal. And I'm just excited to hear about it. I'm sure you've been overloaded with questions and comments and phone calls and that sort of thing since you've killed it.
Yeah, it's been a blessing.
And that's kind of where I wanted to start, I guess. Me and Jansen both are probably going to have a lot of questions in regards to the deer. We've got one Facebook follower that submitted one question, and we'll try to answer it here at the beginning. That way, if he can hear his question answered and doesn't have to listen through the whole thing, so we'll kick it off by answering that question. And since there's three of us, we should get three different viewpoints or three different answers. But to start off, Ethan, tell us a little bit about where you're from. I know from Ohio, but tell us a little more about you, just your basic background and that sort of thing.
Well, I'm from Perry County, Ohio. It's a pretty small little county, and we don't have much here except for about a Subway and a Taco Bell. But it's got some big deer, and I grew up here, and it's been some amazing hunting. And like I said, I just love it here. I got a wife and 2 kids, and my wife's a teacher, and I work construction. And like I said, we're just blessed to be able to have some great land to hunt on and have an amazing family. So, yeah.
Well, good deal. Now, in relation to the state of Ohio, is that in eastern part, northeastern? I can't remember exactly.
I guess I don't know the specifics. I would say we're probably eastern.
Gotcha. Now, Jansen, how far is that from? I know we were in Morgan County and I believe Washington County. Is that correct? When I was there.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how far I'll have to pull up a map and check that. So I'm sure it's not too far, but.
Are you guys familiar with Zanesville and Columbus at all?
Yes,
yeah, I am.
Okay, well, I'm just right down below Columbus, close to Lancaster, Ohio.
Okay. A couple years ago, I think 2009, I hunted Belmont County, Guernsey County, both.
Okay.
And we kind of ventured over into Zanesville, just riding around, kind of sightseeing. But
yeah, I'm about 15 minutes from Zanesville, where I actually ended up shooting my deer. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, we'll kick it off with Zach Scott was the only one that submitted a question. I'll read the question. We'll get kicked off with it. His question is, in y'all's opinion, when the big boys are locked down and you mainly see younger bucks, do you think your success at a mature buck is higher hunting either A, travel routes from bedding areas, or B, close to a food source to pick one off that's following his hot doe to feed? Jansen, I'll let you start and give your answer first.
I would have to say I would stick to bedding on that, because if they are with that one hot doe, I think they're gonna be locked down with her in the thickest, darkest place you can find, and they're probably not going to move too far. In my experience, they probably might get up and walk 50 yards and then lock back down. Just stay on her, but that's my opinion. I would stick to bedding over food for sure.
Ethan, how about you?
You know, I would have to follow up with what he said. I think closer to bedding would be the best. You know, they don't travel real far, especially when they're on lockdown. Yeah, I definitely agree with him there. I think they do travel a little bit once the does start to come off, and I would definitely stick to bedding for the most part. But you do catch them out on food sources as well. If there's more than one hot doe in the area, you just never know. So
I'll agree, and my answer's kind of dependent upon the property that you're hunting and your buck to doe ratio. That lockdown period can vary as far as how long it is, depending on how long the doe stays in heat and how long it takes him to actually breed her. But if you've got a heavy doe population, I'll 100% agree with y'all. Bedding areas is where it's at. But if you're closer to a 1-to-1 ratio, and after he breeds that one doe and he's got to get up on his feet and travel more to find that next doe, I can see the food source being a productive, technique to hunt him and try to kill him. But I'll agree with y'all. I think the best option would be, travel routes to and from bedding. I definitely think that y'all hit it spot on. So that's our only viewer submitted question this week. I know I posted it kind of late, but again, the main purpose of this episode was to talk with Ethan about this deer, and we'll jump right into that. Ethan, starting off, I guess, tell us what it scored. If you've had it aged, how old you think it was, and any, if you've had any history. I don't know if you had multi-year history with him or not. Tell us a little bit about the deer.
well, I had him scored. His official score ended up being 215 and 2/8. We originally grossed him at 220 and 3/8, and I had him scored by actually Ed Waite with Buckmasters. And I started off. This is my first year actually seeing this particular deer. I started seeing him in July, and I was running a lot of different trail cams at a lot of other places, and the first picture I got of this deer, I pretty much just became tunnel vision, and I knew this was the deer that I wanted, and I just pretty much focused on that property and how could I get this deer in particular. So from that point on, I was getting a lot of pictures of them in a bean field, but I knew, the closer they get to the season, sometimes they come off of those feeding patterns. So I wanted to really find out everywhere this deer was bedding. So anytime that it rained, what I would do is I would go and I would take my cameras and I would move them a little bit farther back off the fields until I was able to find this deer's bed. And I found he bedded in 3 different places consistently. And I knew it was going to be in one of those 3 beds. And once I was able to find that, I was really able to pattern him and get him as he was coming out. And the rest is history.
Now, did you have a lot of daytime pictures of him, or
my goodness. One thing that this deer did was he gave me a lot of daytime pictures, more than I've ever got of any other mature buck. And I on rainy days especially, he would be in the field between 1 and 2 o'clock eating, and then on a sunny day, it would seem like 5 or 6 o'clock he was out in the field. He gave me tons of trail cam videos, pictures. It was just amazing to be able to document everything. And he had a really nice partner hang out with him that was about 160-inch mainframe 8-point, and they stepped out together on opening night. And I was trying to swing my camera arm around to get him on film, and I had the big 8 about 20 yards and he was about 30. And when I swung that camera arm around, they both looked right up at me. And as you could imagine, my heart started to drop a little bit because I could tell they were getting nervous. So I just left the camera rolling, pointing into the field, not sure if I actually had him in focus or not. And he started to walk away about 35 yards, and I stopped him. And when I released that arrow, I knew it was a perfect shot right away, and I heard him go down within 20 to 30 yards from where I'd shot him. He just stepped inside the woods, and I heard him crash. And it was an emotional moment because I knew what the deer was going to bring, and it was able to help kind of elevate me where I wanted to go with my hunting career. And I've gained a lot of new friends, and here I am talking to you guys today. So I think that's pretty awesome, I guess.
All right. Jansen, now, you got any questions before we dig deeper into it?
What an amazing story on a crazy deer, buck of a lifetime. It's, you hear about the rarity of a 200-inch deer being killed. Usually, it's the ghost in the night that only gives you nighttime pictures, and you catch it making one mistake, it makes the entire year killing it. For someone to be able to pattern a deer like that, that quality, that's extremely rare. And it's just awesome to hear it go down like that, rather than someone have to, put hundreds of stand hours in and have hundreds of cameras out and never get a daytime picture of this crazy giant buck. And he was able to do all that, and you get to experience it in a whole different way. That's just a crazy story.
Definitely. I thought coming into tonight's conversation that was going to be the story we were going to get of, hey, I've been chasing this deer for the last 2 years. He's never made a mistake. I've only got nighttime pictures of him. And, again, I didn't know if he killed it this year or last year. I was thinking that, maybe he made one mistake chasing a doe and ran a doe by you, and that was the only time you'd ever seen him in the daylight. I really wasn't expecting that. And that really just goes to show that even though a deer is that mature, as that deer obviously was, each one of them has a different tendencies. Some of them, you apparently had found his home range. That's a phenomenal animal at over 200 inches. That's amazing.
Honestly, the thing that surprised me the most about this deer was this was my most trusted property that I've been hunting all my life since I was a little boy, and I've never seen this deer before.
That was going to be my next question, that if you had a history with the deer.
And every other deer that I had on my camera that year, I'd seen, and the big 8 that was with him, I had seen previous year. And I don't know if maybe I'm just not looking through my pictures and this deer's not ringing a bell because maybe he got injured and just grew all those extra tines. I really don't know, honestly. And when I started seeing him in July, it was just, I actually named this deer Obsession because it became my obsession. I wanted to do everything I could do to get this deer, and I took leaps and bounds beyond what I've been a successful hunter for a while now, and I've shot several 130s and 140s, and I just knew I had to do everything to take this to the next level to be able to get this deer. And that's when I started really focusing on going in, using my scent control in the off season to, just making sure my boots are sprayed down every time I walk in there. Only checking my cameras every 3 weeks instead of going in, like every 1 to 2 weeks. And I think all those little things helped me get this deer and keep him on his pattern.
Now, you say you killed him on the opening day. What day was it? It was in late September?
September 29th.
September 29th. Was it a morning or evening hunt?
I didn't even want to hunt him in the morning because I knew where this deer was bedded. It was so close to his food. If I had tried to go in there and hunt him, I would have bumped him off of the food source. And so I elected to just go in and hunt him in the afternoon. Like I said, don't quote me. I don't know the exact time off the top of my head, but I'm thinking it was about 6 o'clock when I shot him. It was between 5:45 and 6 o'clock, I think, when I shot him. And like I said, I was so emotional when I got him. I honestly teared up. This has been just a dream of mine to be able to harvest a deer this big, as it probably is for any avid hunter. And first thing I did was call my dad, man, because my dad and my brother were both texting me saying, you deserve this. We know you're going to get this deer tonight. And it ended up happening, man. It was awesome. And to give you guys like a little story within the story, one of my best friends, him and I, when we discovered this deer, we made a pact. He's like, as soon as you get this deer, text me GBD, giant buck down. Well, when it really hit me, when I'm sitting there in a stand, and I meant to text him that, I texted him GOD, and that was a testament to me, because I was sitting on the stand praying for God to let me get this buck. And when I looked back through it and I seen that I texted him God, and he knew exactly what I meant, that I got that deer. That was another thing that just, it really opened up my eyes. Like, wow.
Definitely a blessing to, all of us that hunt, and specifically that are Christians, that.
Yeah.
I know people always laugh and say, man, do you pray for success? And I always, whenever I pray for it, I say, Lord, if it be your will for me to kill one,
Yeah.
I don't ever want to do anything outside of his will, but at the same time, I want to kill a big deer.
Yeah. No, and I was pretty much born hunting, man. My dad's had me in it since I was a little boy, and it's always like a family competition to, kind of see who can get the biggest deer that year. Well, it felt good for me to say the first time I not only got the big deer, I got the biggest deer in the family. And now my grandpa and my dad, they can't all pick on me anymore and say, yeah, we still got the big buck.
Yeah, I don't know that they'll ever knock you off for that one.
Yeah.
That one's going to be tough to top. Not impossible, though. I mean, Ohio, as you all both know, hunting Ohio on a regular basis, it has a lot to offer.
Yes, sir.
I know you mentioned the property. You said you had hunted it since you were a kid. That was one of the things that I had written down to ask you is, was it, I assumed it was private, but was it family land? Was it, Joe Blow down the street gave me permission to hunt on it, was allowed to my family to hunt on it forever? Just based off what you're saying, it doesn't sound like an outfitter or anything of that nature. So
No, sir. No outfitter. Actually, when I was a little boy, me and my buddy, we would just drive around on our four-wheeler, just asking every local farmer and just person next to my parents' house, hey, can we hunt your land? Just being kids. And it was actually a Mennonite family. And they said, sure, why not? You guys can hunt our land. And we've been hunting there ever since. And in return, we give them deer meat every year. And that makes them happy. So they're awesome people. That's all I know.
Sounds like it. I'd be forever grateful after
oh man,
a deer like that up there.
He was tickled to death when he seen me dragging that big old buck through his front yard. And I had told him about it earlier in the season, and his boys they're all becoming of age, and they're all starting to get into hunting. And like I told him, I said I would love to share it with them, and they can use any one of my stands, that I have here. And I told him, I said, I understand family comes first. So if you ever need me to leave this property, I'm grateful for everything you've done for me. So don't be afraid to tell me no, right. I really understand, you know what I mean? But no, they've been great to me, man. Hopefully more big bucks there next year.
Absolutely. Now, while we're on the property, how big of a piece is it, like acreage wise?
This particular property is only 16 acres, but I do have very close friends that own all the property around it. So I was blessed to be able to, you know what I mean? Kind of, I could chase this deer wherever I wanted to if I had to. But he really just stayed on that particular property. There was a very narrow strip of woods in between two bean fields, and they had just logged it out about 3 years ago. And at the time, I was super bummed because those woods were so open, nothing but big oaks, and I would just always see nice bucks traveling through there, but they were never hanging out there. Now that they've logged these woods, it has absolutely just became a deer haven, and they live there and they don't leave there because it's so thick no one would want to walk through it. And apparently that's the habitat that deer like.
Right.
So now that I got that deer and I realized what those people actually did for me, I'm a little bit happier.
Right. I would be too.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's something that, I think a common misconception is you have to have a large tract to kill good deer. And I know me and Jansen have talked about it in the past. Like the property that he had me hunting on when I was up there with him was, I think, 17 or 18 acres. Is that right, Jansen?
Yep.
And it's all about what the property presents for the deer. They don't know property boundaries, and a lot of times I think I forget that. I think I look at it as, well, this deer knows he's on a 5-acre piece of property. No, the deer don't care. They don't have property lines. They don't care whose property they're on.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we get caught up in thinking we need a bigger or better piece of property. I know you had said that it changed your life or your hunting career, and I know I'd read a few things about you asking about companies that make replicas and things of that nature. Tell us a little bit about, since you've killed the deer, have people reached out to you? Have you had to reach out to them? Tell us kind of how that's went.
Oh man, it was amazing. I run my own webpage, if you guys don't mind me talking about that.
Absolutely not. Go ahead with it.
I run my own webpage, Feathernet Outdoors. It was something I started back in the day with my friends. We were just kind of like, let's be funny and start a webpage and post pictures of our deer. Well, I had I don't know, maybe 100 followers, and then as soon as I shot that buck, next thing I know, I have 240,000 views and just constant friend requests. At one point I had over 5,000 friends, and they wouldn't let me accept anymore. And all the guys from North American Whitetail, Buckmasters, just camo companies, all kinds of companies reaching out to me, asking me if I use their products, if I'm interested in using their products. And a lot of them I was interested in, but at the same time, I'm true to who I am, and I stick with what I use, and I'm not gonna, say I used someone's product when I didn't.
Right, and I admire that and respect that about you. I read some of your, I believe you posted something about it. I won't get into the specifics of what companies it was and stuff, but that is one thing I definitely admired about you. I know some people were maybe asking you to say, or lie and say you use their product to kill the deer with to promote them, and I appreciate the fact that you stayed true to who you are and were honest about it.
And honestly, like I said, if you look up my name on North American Whitetail, you can find my story there. And I don't know if I mentioned to you guys, before I had even shot this buck, I dislocated my shoulder. I separated my AC joint. I had a bone spur, and I tore my bicep. And I've known about this since July, since I first discovered the deer. But I wanted to put it off to be able to get this buck because it was my left shoulder and my left bicep, and I shoot left-handed. So I actually got that surgery right after I shot the buck. I got the surgery a couple weeks later on the 15th, and I have not been able to pull back my bow since. So thank the Lord I got that deer on the first day of the season. That's part of the story that's actually in North American Whitetail. But honestly, my favorite company so far that reached out to me, and I'm with Killer Food Plots. I'm sponsored with them now. Nick Percy's the owner. He actually reached out to me and said, hey, we'd love to have your deer in our booth and interested in meeting you and your family. And that to me, that meant a lot when he said he wanted to meet my family. And he actually came down to Ohio. He's from Michigan. He came down here. He came to my house, and he played with my kids and treated them like his own. And for a sponsor to do that means more to me than any product they could give me, because I know that person really cares about me and my family, which means more to me than hunting, So that was just awesome for him to come down and do that. And I'll be at the ATA this year for the first time, and I'll be displaying my deer in his booth. And hopefully next year I'll be displaying an even bigger deer off of the products that he's graciously letting me use.
Absolutely. And that was another question I have whenever you start talking about other deer. I know you mentioned earlier that you've killed a few 130, 140s. Is there any other deer that you've killed anywhere close to 200 inches?
No, sir. That was the biggest. Now I'm not gonna lie to you and say I haven't had opportunities that deer that big. A couple years ago, I was hunting a deer that I thought was probably gross 200. He was a 14 pointer. Well, it didn't work out how I planned. I almost got him on the first day of the season, but some other people had heard about this deer on the neighboring property, and they were hunting him as well, and kind of bumped him out past me about 80 yards. So I had to let him obviously walk, and I passed up a 150 inch 8 to be able to get an opportunity at that one. Well, some time had gone by, and the deer disappeared, and he ended up just dying of, I'm guessing, natural causes in the neighbor's backyard, and they had found him. And my buddy Jay Byer actually has the rack, and I can't remember exactly what he said he ended up scoring. I think it was 192 or something like that. But he is an absolute beautiful deer. But my biggest before that was like 140 something. I don't know the exact score off the top of my head.
Still 140 inches for. I'm from North Carolina. 140 inch deer is a trophy all day long.
Yeah. And I was pretty happy with shooting 140 inch deer. And like I said, I've got several nice bucks. And this year I really wanted to try to take my hunting to the next level and see where I could take it. I didn't realize it was going to be on a 200. I was hoping for maybe like a 150, 160. And it just so happened this buck started showing up on my camera. And to be honest, I've been out a lot this season, and I haven't taken my bow out since I shot that deer. I just wanted to go out and share my experiences with everybody and help them get on deer. And I've been on 4 bucks over 140 this year, and just as of yesterday, we had a great encounter with a 180 inch deer. Unfortunately, that one didn't go the way we had planned it, but it was still awesome to see a 180 inch deer in the same season as my 215 inch deer.
Absolutely, I can't imagine. What I want to kind of slowly start wrapping things up. I don't want to keep you all night. A few other questions that I had, and Jansen, if you've got any, just jump in. You mentioned another deer you were hunting that folks on the neighboring property kind of bumped it. Did you have any other folks, do you think, that knew about this deer, this particular one we're talking about? Anybody else know about it, or was there anybody else hunting it that you're aware of?
Nobody was hunting it that I'm aware of, and I've never seen pictures on anybody else's trail cams of this deer. Now, I will tell you that there's some pictures of my deer that got famous here in Ohio pretty quick, as I sent some to a couple people seeking some advice, because I wanted to just be able to have the best knowledge possible, from all the local hunters that I know have had success killing deer early season, see what they did to get big deer. And somehow a couple of the pictures got out, and then it just spread like wildfire. I was seeing my picture on the web, well, not my picture of me, but my picture of the deer on the web page, and just everyone had it. And I was starting to get nervous, like, man, is somebody going to find my place and start trying to hunt this deer? And luckily they never did. So
I know several years back, I'm sure both of y'all have heard of it, the OG Ohio giant that was kind of made famous by Archery Talk. That's kind of the reason I was asking that question, because exactly what you're saying, your fear was happened with that deer. The guy took it to Archery Talk and posted it on the forum, and it snowballed very quickly. I think it was like 215 pages of a forum all dedicated to that deer, and people started coming out of the woodwork, showing trail cam pictures of it on different locations. And then you had guys trying to poach and and trespass to get in somewhere where they thought that deer may be. And then you had people taking pictures and posting them on the internet saying that they had it,
Yeah.
like different states. Even there was people posting it in Missouri, like saying, look, I just got this. People seeking that, I guess, fame and recognition just by, they're saving the picture to their phone that they find. And, that it's unfortunate that, I guess no matter what industry you look at, there's going to be people that do things like that. That's why I was asking is if word got out about a 215-inch deer, I could see people doing whatever they had to do to get an opportunity to kill it.
I don't know if you guys have ever seen any of the velvet pictures of my buck. In velvet, a lot of people thought this deer was like 300 inches because he was just so tall and just 20 straight points that went straight off his head. It was pretty crazy. And then the 192, I actually spent more time on that deer than I've ever spent on any deer. And I was in the field with that deer multiple times, just sitting with my video camera watching him. And because I found out about him a lot earlier in the season, but again, I felt like a novice at that time, not taking the steps that I took on this particular buck that actually allowed me to get him that maybe I should have done on the other deer. I was primarily focused on hunting that 190-inch deer just off of the food source and not running cameras anywhere else, just where I was getting him during the daylight. And I felt like that was probably my biggest error, was not trying to find his bed, which I should have done.
Right. And that, that is not I would say not a common technique. A lot of people are afraid to dig that deep, to go to those lengths in fear of bumping him off of their property. Especially on that small of a piece, you have to be confident that you're making the right move and making the right decision, because, one little mistake and you could bump him off of that 16 acres onto, in right out of your life.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
I definitely commend you for making the right choices. And I think that's a testament to your knowledge. And I don't, I'm not even that familiar with you, but I commend you definitely on the steps you took.
Well, I learned things from that other deer, and with the mistakes and right things that I did. I actually bumped that deer off of that property multiple times, just walking out in the field in daylight, because at first I didn't know he was there. And one day I was just walking on that field and I was standing face to face 20 yards from that 190-inch deer. And so I just went back there the next day and sat from afar. And I noticed in the summer, that buck, no matter how many times I could bump him, he would continue to do the same thing. And I was really surprised by that. So I don't think that early season, honestly, I don't think that deer are that afraid of you, because they know that you're not hunting them. And maybe as you get closer into the season, you wouldn't want to do that. And when I got closer to the season, I never once went in that deer's bedding area. I stayed out of it. I had my cameras out of there. And I didn't go in there for like the last month of the season, because I didn't want to take a chance of running him out of there. I just hoped that he continued to eat his food and stay in the beans. And I didn't check my camera until the night that I was able to hunt him, and he was still consistently on them patterns, and it worked out.
Jansen, you got any questions? I think I've got maybe.
I got a couple questions. Were you able to get any of it on film? Like you said, you wasn't sure if you got any of the kill on film, but were you able to film at least the recovery and things like that?
I did film. I filmed some of the recovery, and then unfortunately my kill shot wasn't on there. All you hear is me saying, "Oh my gosh, I just smoked him," and then you just hear like my little panic, like I'm fidgeting around for the camera. I think I could hear my heart pumping in the camera.
I'm sure of it. I'm sure you could. And
go
ahead.
I was gonna say, when I got down out of the tree, I filmed some stuff on my phone, and I did a little documentary walking up to the deer, and I think I said something like, "Oh, I started seeing this deer in August," which I don't even know why I said that. I think my mind was just a little bit of everywhere, because I found him in July, and I had to like I explained that to people. Like, I don't know why I said August. I started getting pictures of this deer in July. But yeah, then I just kind of like, when I seen him, I just lifted up the rack and I was thinking to myself, yeah, that just happened.
Yeah, no kidding. That's insane. My next question was the DNR and at all like on you about this? Like, did they want to come recover the deer with you and document it?
No, they actually didn't. I'm good friends with our local game warden, Tony Zirkle, and I actually contacted him immediately as soon as I shot it, and I let him know, like, hey, man, I got this deer. I want you to know that I got it, and come legalize it and do whatever you got to do. But he trusted me. He knows who I am as a hunter, and I honestly started sending him pictures before anybody else of this deer. Him and my buddy Jay Byer, I sent them pictures because those two guys, they're great hunters, and any knowledge I could get from them to get this deer, I knew it would help. And I was especially sending Tony the pictures because I wanted him to know that this was legit and it wasn't no farm raised deer, because that was one of the questions and stuff that people always
you're
say.
always going to have that when you have a deer like that on even just a picture of it. You're always going to have those people that think it's fake and whatnot. But
yeah, but I was glad to have those good friends like that, and have a good reputation with the game warden and stuff like that, so they know I'm legit. And like I said, but I didn't have too many issues with anybody. Now, like I said, there was a lot of companies that reached out to me wanting the score and wanting the story and stuff like that, but that's about it.
And my last question was the bean field you were hunting and actually killed the deer, had they turned brown yet, or were they still lush and green?
They were very green still, and
Awesome.
that was one thing I knew I had to my advantage, which maybe I didn't touch on very much, was all the properties around this, there was no other crops. There was only two bean fields, and they were where I was hunting, one on the top and one on the bottom, in between this patch of woods. And there was also a creek on the property, so there was plenty of water. This deer just had everything he needed to never leave that property. And those beans were, like I said, they were a very late planted crop, and they were extremely green by the time the season had started. And yeah, it worked out pretty great.
Yeah, that's what's important about, it doesn't matter if you have that 10-acre plot or that 1,000-acre plot. I'd rather have a 10-acre plot that's set up like what you're talking, surrounded by maybe not the best habitat for deer, but you got this one sanctuary that could hold all these big bucks, rather than have 1,000 acres. I think it's a lot easier to manage a smaller, perfect piece of property, you might say, than
Absolutely.
1,000 acres of chaos, really.
And on this one piece of property, I'm not kidding you, just in that summer, there was 15 to 20. I'd have to go back and check my trail cam pics. There was 15 to 20 beautiful deer on that property. And some of them next year are definitely going to be shooters. And there was 3 this year that were absolute shooters if I wasn't seeing a 200-inch deer. So I'm hoping next year produces some great success. Both those fields are going to be corn, which is unfortunate, but right above where I shot my buck, I did get permission to put in a 2.5-acre food plot. So hopefully they still really like beans.
That's awesome.
And one other quick question from me, and we'll let you get back to your family or get in the bed, whatever you got planned for the evening. I know you talked about some shoulder injuries and that sort of thing. You killed this deer with a compound bow, not a crossbow, correct?
Yes, sir. I killed it with a compound.
Okay.
Actually,
Just curious. Either way, I don't care if you kill it with a gun. I'm still one of those type of people where I'm a hunter, point blank, in the every sense of the word. I don't criticize folks for using a crossbow or using a gun or anything like that. It's just not me. But I was just curious.
hey, one thing I want to say while we're on this podcast that maybe a lot of people don't know about me, because I do like to chase big deer and I've killed some pretty nice bucks. I just want to say it's not all about killing a big buck. It means just as much to me to watch my nephew go out for the first time. Like, we had a youth hunt this weekend and shoot his first little 4-pointer. It's not all about the big rack. I mean, as a hunter, you need to do what makes you happy. And I just see too many people bashing other hunters because they hunted with a crossbow or they shot a little buck. It's just, I really don't like that. And I just want to let people know, I mean, shoot what makes you happy. You know what I mean? Do what you love to do as a hunter. It's not always about the rack. Sometimes it's about the meat, you know? Sometimes it's just about the memory.
Yeah, nothing makes me more happier than to hear someone that's had the success that you've obviously had that still, goes by that. Because that's 100%. I agree 100%. I mean, if you want to go chase big deer and that's all you want to kill, do it. If you want to shoot a 100-inch 8-point, do it. If you want to shoot a spike, okay. I mean, if you're having fun and making memories and eating the meat, do what's going to make you happy. We're all out there to do the same thing, and we're all fortunate enough to be able to have the privilege to hunt anything the way the world is today. So just do what you want to do.
Yeah, like I said, I'm more excited than anything for my kids to come of age so I can just share the outdoors with them and get them their first deer. You know, like I still have such great memories with my dad shooting my first deer, and I guess I could ramble on for days, but one of the most memorable hunts for me was one of the first times my dad and I went bow hunting together. One of my grandpas had passed away of a heart attack, and I was handed down his bow. He was a lefty. He was the only one that was left-handed in our family. So am I. So I got his bow, and I shot a beautiful 12-point for my first bow kill. And just walking up to that with my dad, like, that's just a memory that I'll never forget. And just to dream about sharing that with my family one day, I'm just so excited for it.
I'm in the same boat, but I got a 3-year-old and a 5-month-old, so I can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, guys, thanks for having me on, and hopefully I answered your questions well. Sorry if I sound a little nervous and babbled. Like I said, I'm new to the podcast thing and just new to talking to all these great hunters out here, and I'm just trying to give the best knowledge I can and learn from you guys as well. So thanks for having me.
We appreciate you coming on with us, and again, it's a phenomenal deer. Congratulations on it, and I look forward to talking with you more, and getting to know you better. And again, like I said at the beginning, if the good Lord works it out where you can come on board with us, I would love it. We'll talk more about that in the coming days, but I really appreciate you taking time out of your evening to be on here with us. It's been great just to see that there's other people in the hunting community that, Jansen and I get to talk a lot, and we're 7 hours away, and it's amazing how much we're alike as far as our opinions on things and the way we view things, and it's just re-encouraging whenever you meet somebody again that you're 8 or 9 hours away from where I live and across the state from Jansen, and you have those same views and values that we do, and that's definitely encouraging to know that there's still other folks like that out there. But we really appreciate it. And again, this is Ethan Featheroff. We'll post a picture of his deer on our Facebook page, and I know people's bombarded you, but I encourage you to reach out and find a picture of Ethan's deer just so you can kind of grasp of how magnificent this buck was. But without further ado, we're going to jump off here. We appreciate all y'all for listening. Again, this is episode 2 of 20 Feet Closer, and we'll be posting another one here in the next couple of weeks. We may have Ethan back on in the near future to talk some more deer hunting strategies and such as that. But we hope all you guys have a good Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you guys. Have a good night.